that. And so if I am so focused on staying on the line, I can't fulfill my assignment. But my God is big enough to handle my fault, my screws, my mess ups, because he's already prepared for what I might do. He knows what I'm going to do before I do it, and he already made preparation for me before I get there. What follows darkness is light. That darkness is the indicator that light is getting ready to shine. So there it is in Genesis, when darkness was upon the face of the deep, and God in the spirit form moved upon the face of the waters, and then God said, let there be. Because darkness precedes the light. Are you understanding what I'm saying? But he needs the darkness there so that God can move upon the face of the deep, so that the shift can take place. Listen, look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor that shift take place in the darkness. Oh God, y'all didn't hear what I just said. Everybody's not going to see the shift that's happening. They see the chaos, but they don't see the shift. They see all the craziness going on in your life, but they don't understand that underneath the darkness, God is moving in secret. He's moving in quiet. He's moving in the hidden places. He's moving in the cracks and the corners and the crevices. He's moving in places that you cannot see. And when the light comes, they're going to see a new order. But untying. And so the universe then has no choice. First attribute of the secret place. The secret place is a place of revelation. It makes you free because it awakens you and makes you consciously aware that everything that you thought was holding you is an illusion. Well, good morning, good morning, good morning to those of you who are with me this morning, and welcome to Emerge. This is a movement. It is a movement, a ministry that is designed to empower each and every one of you on your journey towards spiritual wholeness. It is. I'm on a mission. Believe me, I am on a mission to try and help and empower as many people as I possibly can with insight and understanding, revelation, knowledge, and a communal koinonia, sharing between all of us, each one of us giving and exchanging our thoughts and ideas, experiences, to help each other to reach a place of wholeness and fulfillment so that we can absolutely fulfill the purpose or the original intent for which we entered this three-dimensional plane of consciousness, why we are here on the earth. And so it is my desire and effort, my intention to address issues, circumstances that I believe will affect us all positively, that can help us to all grow and to evolve and to become. And so today is no different. All this week we've been touching on a number of subjects, and I know that I missed Friday and Saturday. I pulled back on Friday as well as yesterday because I knew that today we would have a more extended, extensive, robust conversation that I'm really doubtful that we're going to be able to conclude in one conversation, in one session. But we're going to go as long as I think that we can. And when I get a sense that maybe we need to pause and come back, maybe tomorrow or the next day, we'll do that because there's going to be a lot to discuss, a lot to digest, a lot to think about in this topic or in this conversation. I tried to keep the topic subject matter as simplistic as possible. But I can tell you that the conversation is complex. It is a complex conversation. It is in depth. And it will require you to do some internal work, some shadow work, some work on yourself, or as in the churchy term, some self deliverance. I don't really necessarily like that term because really there's nothing to be delivered from. You're not bound. The only thing to be delivered from is the thought that you are bound. But it suffices. It suffices to kind of give a wide, broad spectrum of the range of the conversation. And so we're going to really get into some things today that I think will be very helpful, enlightening, and challenging for all of you that are tuned in. And I'm going to try my best not to get hype and do a lot of yelling and get caught up, as y'all know I do. I'm gonna do my best to try and keep it as mellow as possible. And the comment section is definitely open. I want to hear from you. Good morning to all of you. I want to hear from you. I want you to participate as you feel comfortable. Share your thoughts, your experiences, your insights on the subject matter as we delve deep. So I want to know how many of you that are on here right now are ready to go deep with me. You're ready to put in some work. If you are, then put it in the comments. I'm ready. I'm ready to go deep, to really put in some work. While you're commenting, those of you who are on right now, do me the favor, if you will, please tag and share. Tag and share with as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah, I see, Bree, that you tagged Toya because she's normally right here. I'm wondering where Toya Coffee is this morning. She must have overslept this morning or something. But tag and share. I'm glad you guys are ready. Good, good, because we're going to dig in. It's going to get deep. It's going to be deep. Tag and share, if you will, with as many people as you possibly can. Invite them to come and be a part of the conversation, to join us in this in depth empowerment session. Okay, we're going to do some work today. We're going to do some work. So it'll be motivational, inspirational, aspirational, but it's also going to require some work on your part to take some of what you're going to hear and be willing to sit with it, to meditate on it, to regurgitate it, ruminate on it, and then do the applicable work so that we can live our best life. It is absolutely the desire of God for each one of us as individual, unique expressions of God to experience life abundantly. Um, in the scripture, it says, I am come, that the I am has come that we might have life, and that we might have it more abundantly, that is, that we would have the chance, the opportunity to be able to experience life to its fullest, abundant, limitless, infinite possibilities, but that is not guaranteed. It is not guaranteed that everyone will experience the full, infinite possibilities that are available to all of us. There are those who will live their life within this imaginary box that is created by them, influenced by their culture, their environment, their religion, their experiences, their traumas. And so they back themselves into this corner and live inside of this imaginary box or cage, unable to really fully experience and express their truest, authentic self, always trying to conform and fit into an image that they think is acceptable to the world and the society around them, or the friends that they've connected with, or the world they may be navigating in at the moment, always trying to change themselves so that they can fit into a relationship, a situation, a circumstance, a job, a surrounding, a career, a business acumen, to always try and do something to be someone other than who they actually authentically are. And that society, especially religion, has placed so many demands on us as a species, as humanity, to be something other than who we authentically are. From the moment of conception, almost up until the moment that you enter this three-dimensional world through birth, and throughout your childhood, your adolescence, and growing up in your teenage years, you are being told who you are and what to do. We enter this world, we enter the womb already being told who we are and what we're supposed to do. Every one of us experience it. It's a part of the human nature. It's become a part of the collective psyche, our consciousness of our species of being on this planet, in this plane of consciousness. For whatever reason, and I don't know when it began or when it all, where it all Genesis is from, but for whatever reason, we impose the idea of what a person who a person is and what they're supposed to do. And we automatically, and I think unconsciously, assume that who they are is not enough, is not who they're supposed to be. I mean, just think about on a granular level how we speak to each other and we speak to children. How we pepper them with the questions and the idea that who they are is not enough. And so we say to them, well, what are you going to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? When you get to be an adult, what are you going to be? And it seems harmless, but that is couched in the idea that who they are at the moment is not enough. And so you have to aspire to become something else or something other than what you are. And what is so ironic about that is that we are probably, and I'm saying probably, we are probably more authentically ourselves at the moment of our birth and in our childhood than we ever are throughout our existence in the earth. We are more comfortable being our authentic self, living in our authentic truth, being the highest and best version of ourselves when we are children than when we are as we begin to get older and progress in our maturation process. As we begin to get older and chronological time goes by and we go through maturity or the maturation process, we have been, by the time we reach the stage of being a teenager, we have been so bombarded with the idea of who others see us as, think we should be, and think we should do, that we find ourselves spending the next large portion of our existence in this earth trying to live out or materialize or manifest a reality that's not our own. How many of you who are watching me right now began a career in a particular area, not because it's really what you felt called to, passionate about, not because it was your highest vision for your life, but because you were told this is what you should be. You should strive to be a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist, or you should strive to be this or that. There is a family legacy or a family history of being this. The McCoys have always done this. The Miles have always done this. The Jamersons, whatever your name is, have always been this. And you felt the pressure to be or to conform to that image, not that you came up with yourself, but that was given to you. How many of you have grown up in circumstances or in an environment where you felt like you didn't really belong? You really didn't fit in. You even have labeled yourself the black sheep of your family. I hate that terminology because it associates blackness with something being negative or bad, and black is the most beautiful, wonderful thing that there is. But that's a whole nother conversation. But you associate yourself with being the black sheep or being different or being the one that's kind of like the outcast. I hear you, Bree. I see it. Yeah, that you don't really fit in with everyone that's in your family or in your neighborhood or in your immediate environment in which you were reared. And it's like you don't, even like Bree was saying, still to this day, you have that awkwardness, that uncomfortableness when you are around or engaged in conversations with them, people that you are the most familiar with. You grew up in the same house with the same parents, but under the same roof, and yet you feel so detached from those people and have such a different sense of yourself and feel like I just don't really belong. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And and maybe that has become so overwhelming, so intense that even to this day, in other settings, you never feel quite comfortable, quite at ease, quite like you belong or like you fit. And religion, unfortunately, has a terrible way of dressing this up, and and attaching it to different titles or different callings, and then turning it into a badge of honor. And I understand it; it's a way of coping. It's a way of being able to embrace that whole idea. And so they say to you that, well, when you have a certain anointing on your life, you don't fit in with people around you. Sometimes you just have to walk alone, and some people are called to be separated from other folk. And so when you're a prophet or you're a real apostle of God, then you don't fit in with the people around you. You can't have a lot of friends because you're just different. You're so eclectic that you don't fit in. And so they dress it up as an anointing when in fact it's a dysfunction. I told you it's going to get heavy. It's going to get heavy. It's really a dysfunction. It's really a trauma response. There are a number of people that isolate themselves, that insulate themselves from others around them for the sake of ministry, when in fact it's really not. It's a trauma response. It's birthed out of an underlying fear that began from childhood, being told you're not enough, that you are not enough, that who you are is not acceptable. We began our life in those circumstances, that who we are is not acceptable, who we authentically are. Value judgments are placed on certain behaviors, certain words, certain thoughts. Come on. In my house, you couldn't use the word lie. That was considered a cuss word. Anybody else? You could say you were telling a story, but you better not say the word lie, because that was considered a cuss word. You couldn't, no, you don't say that word, you know? And so for certain value judgments were placed on certain behaviors, certain thoughts, certain ideas. There you are, Toya, girl, you had me worried for a minute. I'm like, okay, yeah, you telling a tale. Yeah, you could say that, but you could not say you were lying. Certain value judgments are placed on certain words, certain behaviors, and so if you behaved in a manner that parents did not feel was acceptable, then the adults around you would tell you, "Oh, I know you didn't do X, Y, Z. Not my child." No, that's not my child acting that way. That's not my child doing this, that, or the other, you know, and vice versa. When you did those things that they did find acceptable, then it was like, well, that's my child, that's my son, my daughter, ooh, mommy loves you, daddy's so proud of you. Okay? Yet unconditional love, listen to me, unconditional love expresses itself by saying, in whatever state you present yourself, you are loved and accepted. Not that I condone every behavior or every choice. It's not up to me to condone or to reject. It is that I accept you. I love you. That you have the liberty and the freedom to run up and jump in my lap and put your arms around me and know that you will not be rejected no matter what you've done, no matter what you may have done or said. You are mine. You are accepted. You are loved. And so my heart is completely open to you. Yet many of us didn't grow up in that way. We were taught that, acceptance is a trade-off. It's a trade-off. It's an exchange. You have to earn acceptance. You have to earn love. You have to earn it. And if you don't do the things necessary to earn it, you will lose it. Come on. And right away, it begins to create this cognitive dissonance within the consciousness of the soul, because remember that the soul is an individuation of the divine. And so all it knows is unconditional acceptance, love, joy, peace. And now it is having to experience love with conditions, acceptance with condition. Imagine the shock to the soul, to the consciousness, to the psyche. All of us who have had children or been around children, see how they act and move with such reckless abandon. They just do whatever, say whatever, act however. They have supreme trust and supreme faith. I remember one of my kids would climb up on top of dressers and high things, sofas, and just jump. No fear whatsoever. Didn't know to be afraid. Didn't know the possibilities of any consequences or anything. Would just jump and laugh and fall, and bang the floor and get up laughing like it was just the most hilarious thing in the world. Absolutely hilarious. Because it knew no boundaries. They knew no boundaries, no limitations. They knew no fear. There was no undergirding fear that if I do this, then it's going to cause this, that, or the other. There was no fear of consequence. We are taught consequences by the people around us who are well-meaning and have the best intention, but because we didn't know better, we didn't do better. Now that we know better, I want to help us to do better. And so, with well intention, they taught us consequences, but they taught it in such a dysfunctional, traumatic, harmful way that it caused an emotional trauma within us that we've never viewed as trauma. We viewed it as, well, that's just how I am. Well, that's just how I was raised. Or that, that's home training. Come on. Come on. That's home training. They hear y'all out here acting like they ain't had no home training. Okay? When in fact, it was really a trauma doctrine being ingrained within us that trained us to think, to behave, to expect, and to perceive the world through one particular lens. And guess what? The lens wasn't our own, it became our own. It was the pair of glasses given to us by our environment, by our culture, most often by our parents and our siblings. They gave us a pair of glasses, they gave us a lens through which to view the world. I was talking with Dee Dee this morning about some of the things that I experienced growing up as a child in the 60s and how it desensitized me. I'm just now realizing that it desensitized me to a number of things, and led to some lifelong behaviors, perceptions, actions, and choices for me that were not birthed out of my own true authentic desire, but birthed out of a perceived need and an underlying fear that was ingrained in me as a young child. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And so that kind of cognitive dissonance, that kind of cognitive confusion leads you to begin to come up with ways of trying to cope with the deficiency that you have been convinced that you have. How many of you have come up in a household where you were told that you were bad or fast or smart mouth or stupid or ugly or dumb or slow, or that, you didn't belong, that I don't know where we got you from. I don't care, know where you came from. You're not like any of the other kids. How come you can't be more like your brother? How come you can't be more like your sister? Why do you act like this? Why do you think like this? Why do you behave like this? You so fat. You too skinny. You so slow. You don't have the sense God gave a gnat. You as dumb as a doorknob. Come on. Grew up in that environment, in that household. And those types of words are traumatic. Yes, Bree says that I was only smart mouth when I thought, using her own brain. Yes. Toya is saying we had to wear glasses regardless of the whether we felt we were wrong or not, whether we felt we were wrong or not. Right. We were told this is who you are, given an identity that created a cognitive dissonance, a confusion, to where you began to ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Those kind of disempowering questions. What's wrong with me? Why do I always act this way? Why do I think this way? Why can't I be more like? So the very things now that were being asked of you, you start to ask of yourself. How many of you can remember through your childhood, and maybe even now in your adulthood, that you find yourself asking yourself, what's wrong with me? That puts forth the assumption that there is something wrong. What's wrong with me? Why do I act this way? What's wrong with me? What's broken inside of me? And now people even promote the idea of being broken. Like, something good about being broken. I don't get it. I don't get that. But it's there. Okay. And so that kind of cognitive dissonance creates a confusion within the soul to where you don't really know who you are. You start to lose your real, authentic identity. You came here knowing it. That's why you were so happy and unabashed and, relentless and free and at liberty. And slowly, bit by bit, piece by piece, that was taken from you. The whole and you sometimes use scripture to do it. When I was a child, I thought as a child, I behaved as a child. Come on, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. That's a very powerful principle. But only when you understand the difference between childhood and adulthood, and that it doesn't have to do with fitting into a particular mold or fitting into a particular structure or following a set of regimented rules and legalisms. Leaving childhood doesn't mean losing your adventurous imagination, leaving all of your curiosity behind. Becoming a man, becoming an adult, does not mean that you leave behind your sense of adventure, your sense of curiosity, your fearlessness, your willingness to take a risk, to live with reckless abandonment. Even that word reckless it doesn't really fit. To live with abandonment and an abundance. But we have been taught that to be mature means that you follow a set of regimented rules, a set of laws and societal norms. This is what grown people do. This is how grown people act. This is how grown women think. This is how grown men think. Let's hone it down even further. This is how grown Black women think. And this is how grown Black men think. Take it further. This is how grown Black men from the South think. And this is how grown Black women from the South or the North think. Hold on, take it further. This is how grown Black men from the South who are saved think. This is how grown Black women from the North who are saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost think. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And with each layer and each level comes a different layer and level of rules that are designed to constrain and confine you and conform you to a particular idea that no one really knows whose imagination it began in, but to a particular idea that is socially, religiously acceptable by the rest of society. And so you lose yourself in those expectations. And so you see someone who is a doctor behaving in a manner that you don't associate with being a doctor. And he's like, what's wrong with them? What kind of doctor does that? Oh, here's the one. But a preacher, pastor, apostle, prophet, bishop, whatever, behaving, speaking are carrying themselves in a way that you have been told doesn't associate or relate to being a preacher. So what's wrong with them? Well, they can't be real. They can't be of God, because if they know God, you won't act this way. Who gets to decide how you should act other than you? You spend your whole life trying to live up to a title, trying to live up to a name, trying to live up to a position, trying to be someone other than your authentic self, because in reality, you don't really know who you are anymore. You are in the process, some of you, of self discovery or rediscovering who you really are. Some are not. Some are just trying to make the best out of who they have been told they are, while others are living in rebellion, trying their best to be the exact opposite of who they were told that they were, but still not being their authentic self. They're just living in opposition or rebellion of who others have expected them to be. I can talk about this with extreme intelligence and passion, because I've been in ministry for over 40 some odd years, 46 going on 47 years now, that ministers, preachers, pastors, this is probably going to make some of my preacher associates a little upset, are some of the fakest people in the world. The most fake, phony, masquerading individuals on the planet are preachers. Not because they really want to be fake. It is because the demands of religion and the whole culture that surrounds it puts a demand on them to be fake. It is what I entitled institutionalized hypocrisy within the entire setup of the whole religious community, where you are not allowed to live your authentic truth, to be who you really are. There is a demand placed on preachers, and then it passes down to parishioners, the congregation, for everyone to be someone or something that they really are not, because they have taken a book that is a collection of principles, practices, and patterns, and turned it into a rule book that says this is how you're supposed to live, who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to act, and say, well, saved people act like this, and unsaved people live like this. And so nobody comes to the gathering meeting place, the place where we congregate, and lives their authentic truth. They come and live the pretense that's socially, religiously, culturally acceptable to the people around them, and then live, in many cases, either a double life, one way at church, another way outside of church, or a, a overwhelmingly constrained life, trying to follow the rule book their entire life. And so they're not really living, they're just merely existing, or they live in opposition, rebellion, trying to be the exact opposite of what is expected of them to show folk you ain't gonna tell me what to do. Neither of those places are healthy. None of those places are healthy. None of those places are healthy. And yet, and I'm speaking about the religious community because it's the one that I am most familiar with. Like I said, I've grown up in and been in ministry for over 40 some odd years, 46, 47 years, something like that, almost my entire life. And I know what it is. So the hypocrisy is not that you are uh, uh, have these proclivities, desires, behaviors that are that make you unacceptable to God, because they don't. God has no preference. God has no preference. The experience is the point. God is wanting to experience and express itself in you, through you, and as you. But you are convinced through religion and society and culture that God has a preference. And so you have to follow these rules. And so you find yourself trying to live out these rules. And the hypocrisy is not uh, in you're doing some things that go against those rules and then coming to the congregation or to the gathering place and worshiping and praising. That's not hypocrisy, or preaching or leading praise and worship or doing. That's not the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is when you engage in what is your authentic self outside of those walls and then come to those walls and pretend that you don't. There's the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is not the person who drinks and comes to church. It's the person who drinks and comes to church and says, I don't drink. You see, initially, yes, they're saying I'm free every Sunday, and they're not free because we don't really know what freedom is. The initial purpose of the church, as much as it is a purpose, is a place, a gathering place. It is a gathering, a place for us to congregate. Okay, ecclesia, the called out, congregation, a place to gather together. Okay, those are what all the terminologies are about. It's a place of koinonia and exchange. It is a place where we exchange and covenant. That's what the word covenant means. An exchange for weakness, exchange of weaknesses for strengths, where we were able to come together with other like-minded people, other humans being, spirits being human, and exchange thoughts, ideas, concepts, learn new principles, practices, and patterns, find support. But instead, what it has devolved into is a place where you come and pretend like you got it all together and hear a message that tells you either how terrible, ungodly, sinful, and jacked up you are, or how wonderful, special, and favored you are, and you're going to be blessed in the city, in the field, in the country, and da 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 da. And everyone pretends to be someone other than who they are. And as long as you wear the mask and participate in the pretense, then you're accepted. But if you don't participate in the pretense, and anyone within the congregation should find out or know that you don't live according to their idea of the rule book, then you are classified as unsaved, ungodly, unholy, demonic, demonically possessed. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Okay? Exact. Oh, that's so good. I'm going to put that one on screen, Bree. Bree says it's ironic because the church made caste systems within it. Absolutely. Ooh, yes. The church created, the religious community created an entire caste system. And so you had the upper caste, the middle caste, the lower caste, and all of them were based upon ideas of the saved and the unsaved, of the favored and the unfavored, of the anointed and the unanointed, of the called and the uncalled. And there's these social the social hierarchy set up within the church. That's why black preachers especially get so offended if you call them by their name. You better not call them Mark or Jesse or Isaac or Jimmy or it's apostle, prophet, pastor, reverend, bishop. You don't call me by my name. It's disrespectful. Imagine the idea that it is disrespectful to be called by your name. I, I want you to sit with that for just about 15 seconds. Just imagine the idea that it is considered disrespectful to be called by your name. Because we have taken on the title as an identity. I'm no longer Isaac, I'm Apostle Miles. You don't call me Isaac, Apostle. That's my identity. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Yeah, okay. And it didn't start there. It's like, come on, you did the same thing growing up. We were taught that. You don't call, especially not an adult, by their name. It's disrespectful. Who decided that it was disrespectful? Our culture. In what rule book? Where did that come from? Our culture. And so you have to attach a Miss, Mr., Sir, and Ma'am to that. Because anything outside of that is disrespectful. I know this is a tough one right here, especially for some of us adult black people. We just, we can't get with that. No child got no business talking to me like that, calling me by my name. Okay? That's our culture. Same thing with our religion. All of it comes from trauma. All of it comes from fear. All of these things are coping mechanisms, trying to become and fit into this imaginary box or hierarchy or cage that society has decided this is what you need to be. This is how we act. This is what's acceptable. This is what is not. And it never dawns on us until you reach adulthood and maybe you've had the privilege of traveling and experiencing other cultures in other places around the world that you start to recognize that, wait a minute, everybody doesn't think this way. I have this saying that I've said a lot that got me in a lot of trouble when I first started saying it. God is not a Christian and God is not an American. People get real upset with me initially when I started saying that because we have tried to Christianize and Americanize God. and think that this is the end all and be all of culture, of behavior, of thought, of what is socially acceptable and what is not. And so, we consider others who behave and think differently in other parts of the world as uncultured, uncivilized, and savage, unsaved, sinful, in need. They need Jesus. That's why we need to go over there and preach to them and evangelize and do missionary work in those places, because they so lost. They in darkness. Why? Because they don't act like Americans. They don't think like Christians. And the only reason you act and think the way you do is because you were raised to be an American and to be a Christian, or whatever religion you happen to be raised in. That's the only reason it seems normal to you. That's the only reason it seems right to you. That's the only reason why you believe that this is what's acceptable and this is what's not. Had you been raised in a culture where polygamy was acceptable, you would see nothing wrong with it. Polyamory was practiced, you would see absolutely nothing wrong with it. And you would come to this culture and be like, well, what's wrong with you guys? What's the problem? It's only because you were raised in a European, Eurocentric, Christianized idea of what is good, acceptable, and right, that you accepted those as your values and made them your truth, and they informed your decisions and your choices and your beliefs, not what you know, what you believe, and your values. This conversation is centered around breaking out of all of that. I haven't even gotten into the meat of the conversation, and it's already been an hour. Good Lord. Okay. But I'm going to go a little bit further. And I know, like I said, we're going to be extended a little longer today than normally on Sunday. I'm trying to be done in an hour. But I'm going to ask those of you who can and will to hang in with me just a little while longer. I promise I won't go for 2 or 3 hours, but I will go on for just a little while longer, just to finish laying the groundwork. And like I said, we'll probably pick it up on tomorrow night, and we'll just each night try and go further. This is going to be a very extensive, robust, and extended conversation, but it's a necessary one to have, because my goal is for each and every one of us to really learn to embrace our truest self, to figure out who are you being and who are you becoming. Who are you being? Are you being your best, authentic, truest self? Are you showing up in your full authenticity in life? Or are you being who you've been told to be, who you've learned to be, who you've settled with being? And then who are you becoming? Are you envisioning? What is your vision, your highest and best vision of your future? Are you becoming the highest and best version, a more evolved and enlightened version? Or are you trying and striving to fit in and finally become what is socially acceptable to those in your community? How do we escape the boundaries of our traumas and our confusion, our cognitive dissonance that we all had to encounter and endure after leaving the majesty of the infinite liberty and freedom of being in the ether and isness of God, and entering three-dimensional form and immediately being bombarded with these other ideas and concepts of who we ought to be. That through our childhood and adolescence, we lost ourselves, and we are just now on the journey of really fully recovering and rediscovering who that being is, who it's always been underneath the trauma and the hurt and the feelings of rejection and abandonment. That confusion, that cognitive dissonance that has bled over into our social life, our religious life, our emotional life, our academic life, our career life, that has just bled over into every nook, cranny, corner, and crevice and crack, every facet of our being. And now we are having to work, to put in the work, to recover and reset ourselves, because we've learned how to cope. We've adapted certain behaviors that have become automatic in order to be able to cope, in order to be able to fit. The effects of that confusion is the development of coping mechanisms like alcohol or drugs or anger or religion. And I know that, oh goodness, some of my associates rather are going to get a little upset with me throwing religion into as a coping mechanism, but for a vast number, I would venture to say probably a majority of people, religion, all religions, from Christianity to Muslim, the Islamic to Hindu, the Buddhist, so on, have become more so a coping mechanism than a place of empowerment. Just teaching you how to cope. It's going to be all right. After a while, by and by, one of these old days, you're going to take two wings and fly away. And Jesus is going to fix it. And God's going to fight your battle for you. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. And the devil is a liar. And you're going to overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. And it's going to be all right. And after a while, by and by, trouble in my way, got to cry sometime, but lay awake at night, but that's all right. Jesus is gonna fix it. Coping mechanisms. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Rather than dealing with the deep-seated trauma and fear that's there. Yes. Oh, I like that, Theresa. Theresa said, I used to say I'm having a come to Jesus moment, but now I have a come to Theresa moment. Exactly. Okay. Toya says, I have worn the mask so long that I am fighting now to find who I truly am authentically. Yes, you're not alone. You're not alone. Okay? You're not alone. We all are striving for authenticity to get to that place, to be able to share the coping mechanisms. And so we create these coping mechanisms, like I said, like alcohol, like sex and drugs and anger and religion, that tendency to shut down and become like, well, I'm ice cold. I don't care what nobody think, what nobody say. I don't care what they feel. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about nothing. I don't care about nobody. It don't matter to me. You can say and think whatever you want. That's not normal. That's not human. That's a coping mechanism, or the judgment reaction, where you become hypercritical of every other person and every other thing. There's something wrong with everybody but you. Like the mother who goes to see her son graduate from the military academy and watches them march in, and she says, "Oh, look, everybody's out of step except my son." That over judgmental reaction is where you see something wrong with everything and everybody but you. You can never be wrong. You can never be off. And if you are, it's not your fault, it's somebody else's. Or it's not that big of a deal, it's minuscule. It's not as bad as, at least I'm not like them. At least I'm not like that. Or I didn't do this. Or at least I'm not like you. The need to go tit for tat. Well, XYZ is the case. Maybe you should consider da da da. Well, what about you? How you gonna tell me? What about you? You do this, you do that, you do this too, and you da da da. You ain't perfect yourself. How you gonna tell me? Coping mechanisms, that rejection response, out of the fear of being rejected or being cut off, you become an enabler, a codependent, or both. And I really want to get into that one. I'm not gonna jump into the enabler codependency piece this morning, because that's going to take some time. I really want to dig into those two, because those two are I think the underlying foundation, the substratum, the support system for so much of our behaviors, so many of our choices. It informs so much of what we do as spirits being human, who have experienced such overwhelming trauma and have not been taught an adequate way with dealing with it and dispensing with it, distilling it out of our being. And so we created these coping mechanisms, and two of the largest ones, I think, my thoughts, my opinion, is that whole enabler, becoming an enabler, and codependent. Okay? To become an enabler and becoming codependent. And like I said, I don't want to just jump into that, because that's going to take some time to really unpack. So I don't want to just kind of jump into that piece and just gloss over it. Okay? But so we've all come up with these coping mechanisms to try and find our place in this world, in society, with our group, with our tribe, or to just be able to maintain our sanity in a world that seems so out of control and filled with anarchy and chaos. But can I tell you that the world is not as crazy or chaotic as it might seem or appear? It only appears to that way to all of you, all of us, because we look through these lenses, these glasses that have been handed to us by our culture and our family and our friends and our religion and our society and our environment. They gave us these glasses and say, now, look, so what do you see? Well, you see what I've seen. You see what the culture has seen because they're the ones who provided the glasses. You see what the religion sees because they're the ones who provided the glasses. And you cannot leave out of the equation that you are a omnipotent being, an omnipotent, all powerful being, an expression of God. And so your thoughts, your imaginations are so powerful that they can manifest, bring into three-dimensional manifestation whatever it is that you've imagined. And so you have real, seemingly real, authentic experiences and encounters that are based upon an illusion because they were created by you. Because you were told that that's what it is. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's one of those things that again gets me in trouble with the whole religious community. When I start to talk about the fact that, demon spirits aren't real. They are a figment of our imagination. They are a figment of our imagination. Because you were told your whole life that these things exist, these forces, these powers, these enemies, this imps and powers and dominions and thrones and demons and devils and goblins and whatever exists. You accepted that as your truth. That became your belief. And so therefore, faith, again, impartial, faith is just a tool, it's a mechanism. It's going to operate on whatever you feed into it. And so faith then has the responsibility of giving you a living, breathing manifestation of what you have accepted as your truth. Or, and to put it in the more uh, uh, mystical term or metaphysical term, that is, your outer world of form and experience reflects your inner world of thought and feeling. So the universe has no choice but to give you an outpicturing, a living, breathing manifestation of what you have accepted as your truth. So because you have been taught that these ghosts and goblins and demons and devils and spirits and hanks and whatever are real your entire life and you have accepted them as true, you will see them, experience them, feel their presence around you because you created them. You created them out of whole cloth. You created them out of your own imagination. You created them out of your own mind. And yes, it's like you can't tell me that I didn't experience this. I know my experience is real. It was absolutely a real, authentic experience, but it was based upon a lie. And so you created a lived experience for yourself based upon a belief that was a lie. It was a lie. It was a lie. I know that's hard. That's difficult for people to wrap their mind around, but it is absolutely true. Just as you create these experiences for yourself because you are convinced that you are slow or that you are dumb or that you are stupid. And so you go about conforming to the idea of what dumb, slow, or stupid is. And so you start to bring about the manifestation, the proof, the three-dimensional experience of being stupid or dumb or slow or retarded or some all of those things. You create a reality. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, does that mean that your experiences are not real? They are absolutely real, but they are based upon a lie, which makes them a real illusion. You are living in a dream, a fantastical idea created by your own consciousness based upon the lies you accepted as your truth that interrupted your authentic knowing that you came into this earth with. Take a moment and swallow that. That is the reason for the coping mechanisms. That is the reason for the defensiveness, the shields, the walls, the religious acrobatics and calisthenics. It is the reason behind the fear, the anxiety, the worry about what's going to happen if I do this or do that, if I'm not this, if I'm not that, and what if I'm wrong about this and am I not about that, and what about this, and I don't want to go to hell. Ooh, I'd rather live this way and find out later I was wrong than to live another way and find out later everybody else was right. Come on. Come on, I know this conversation. I used to have this conversation. I used to believe these things. And it never dawned on me how disempowering it was, how unauthentic it was. Because I was living the life and wearing the mask that everyone expected me to live and wear. They just didn't know about the other side of me when I wasn't wearing the mask, when I was living out my truth and being who I really authentically was. And when the two worlds collided, then I became a false prophet, a fake preacher, a hypocrite, all these other things. Did it make the things that I had taught and said and the positive impact that I had on people's lives any less? Of course not. But society's rules religious rules say, they're of no value anymore because they don't meet a certain criteria that's been constructed by a group of people who you don't even know. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Millions of people received help, encouragement, empowerment, material help through Eddie Long. I like to use him as an example. They received tremendous help, millions of people. And when a rumor came out, still don't know whether it's all true or not, and it doesn't matter whether it is or not. But it immediately he became fake, phony, hypocrite, a liar, ungodly, false prophet, going to hell, he the devil, despite the millions of people who have been helped by this man and the things that he had to say, because we were told that there is more there. What's most important is the vessel and not what they're providing. But the same people, if you are, because we have been trained to put such value on material stuff, will twist themselves in the pretzels to come up with a way to find other things acceptable because they're getting something they want. It used to puzzle me when I was younger, when they used to teach us in church that it was a sin for you to drink, it was a sin for you to smoke, it was a sin for you to do any of those kind of things. Ungodly. Yet there were people in the church who worked in grocery stores and sold alcohol. And the church had no problem receiving the tithe from people who were selling alcohol, who made their money from selling alcohol or selling cigarettes. Oh, the money was acceptable. You got drug dealers who go to your church and they give large sums of money. Do you say, we ain't accepting no money from no drug dealer? Of course not. You take that money. See how hypocritical it is? That's what I'm saying. It's just like, come on. Come on. And you couldn't sing on the praise team because you got pregnant. But now you could have as much sex as you want as long as you don't get caught. And you still anointed. And you can sing, keep singing. And we going, go, as long as we don't know. Now, if we ever find out, then we don't feel nothing no more. You ain't anointed no more. God ain't using you no more. Because we found out something. It's changed our perception of you, which changes our response to you, which changes how we feel. So the question becomes, were you feeling God ever? Were you ever really feeling God, sensing the presence of God? Or were you sensing the talent of the person that you like and believed lived a certain life? And as long as that curtain was up, you were happy to be a follower of the Wizard of Oz. But when they pulled back the curtain and you saw that the wizard was a weakling, I can't follow them no more. Laura says they put it everywhere in commercials in our thoughts because our family believed it along with our friends. Thank you so much for this knowledge. Amen. Okay. No, they did not have a problem because they were smoking and drinking too. Oh, Lord. Bree says, I know a girl who had to sit on the back row of the church because she got pregnant. Right. Right. Yeah. Or you have to sit on a certain bench or sit on a certain pew and sit down from your responsibilities. Well, not just the singers, preachers too. You ain't got no business pastoring. You got no business leading God's people. And you having sex? Are you drinking? Are you smoking? Come on. And it was really only the things that you could see, drinking, smoking, having sex, getting high, using drugs, or stealing money. Those are the ones that'll get you, you know. But you could be as jealous, tell as many lies, have as much envy, malice, strife. Oh yeah, we ain't got no problem with that. Keep on preaching, preacher. It's okay. I feel the same way too, child. Me too. Come on. And depending upon what denomination of religion you practice, hell you could cuss. You know, the Baptist preachers cuss all the time. Just like hey, that's right. It seems like the congregation get more excited when they cuss. Oh my God. Ooh. Okay. I'm serious. Coping mechanisms, pretense, masquerading, all pretending to be what has been socially acceptable, but all of it robbing you of your authenticity, robbing you of who you really are, the good and the bad of it, the right and the wrong of it, the righteous, the unrighteous, the godly, the ungodly, the acceptable, the unacceptable. When in fact, all that is required of you is to live your authentic, truest, highest, best self. That loves, God's love is unconditional. God's acceptance is unconditional. No one is rejected by God. I want to repeat that. And I know this makes those who are tethered and tied to the religious ideologies of their particular ilk really upset. But no one is unacceptable to God. God accepts and loves everyone. Yes, yes, even those who may have committed heinous acts of violence, murder, and mayhem. God accepts and loves everyone and everything. God has no preference. It doesn't care what you do. The experience is the point. And all there is cannot know itself outside of all there is not. The is and the is not have to coexist for the other to be realized or experienced. Light has to have darkness, and darkness light. There cannot be up without down. There cannot be right without wrong or left. There cannot be in without out. So the is requires the is not. That's a good question, Bree. Why would anyone want to deny the human experience when God loves us no matter what? Because we are taught that God does not love and accept us no matter what. Because we are taught that all experiences, there are some experiences that are good and valuable and others that are not. And Toya asked the great question, how can God deny itself? She says himself, because really God is not a him or a her, but if referring to it as him or her is absolutely acceptable as well. And the answer is it cannot. It cannot. And so I want us, those of you who are tuned in, those of you who follow this particular platform, we're going to, over these next few days now, I don't know how many days, we'll go as long as it takes, begin to dismantle all of the coping mechanisms and all of the structures that we have built up in order to try and assume an identity and a position that's not who we really are. And I hope to impact you in such a profound way that you'll find your voice, that you'll find the courage to live in the liberty of your authentic self, without fear, without guilt, without doubt, but to live freely and abundantly in the liberty of your truest or most authentic self. And I want to say this again, just to make it clear, and I'll probably repeat it several times throughout our conversation. I am not anti anything. I'm not anti God, absolutely, because I am a divine expression of God, God in me, God as me. But I am not anti-religion. I'm not anti-church. I'm not anti-Christians or anti-Islam or anti-Buddhism or anti-Hinduism or any other religion that's out there. I'm not anti-voodoo. I'm not anti-hoodoo. I'm not anti-mysticism. I'm not anti-anything. I am for people. And whatever best serves you, helps you, aids you in being your authentic self, I'm your biggest cheerleader and your fan. That's what this platform is about. I'm not promoting Christianity. I'm not promoting Islam. I'm not promoting Hinduism. I'm not promoting voodoo or hoodoo. I'm not promoting mysticism. I'm promoting you. And whatever tools you find necessary to help you be your most authentic self, then more power to you. I want you to use it and do it, because that's what all of these things are. They were all originally supposed to just be tools to help connect us with our highest self, with our divinity, with the all of everything, with the creator. We turned them into an identity. You're not a Christian, you practice Christianity. You're not a Muslim, you practice Islam. You're not a Hindu or a Buddhist, you practice Hinduism and Buddhism. There's a difference between a practice and an identity. That's not what I practice, is not my identity. I eat chicken all the time. I love me some chicken. I'm not a chicken, but it is a common practice of mine to have chicken. I'm not a chicken. No feathers here. I promise you. You can look under here. No feathers. What you practice does not give you an identity. So I want to be clear that I'm not anti anything. I'm for you. And these conversations and these discussions, as we delve even deeper and dig into your traumas and dig into our overwhelming experiences that help to form and shape our ideologies, our perceptions, our perspectives, and begin to deconstruct all of those things that have confined us for so many years and dismantle all of our coping mechanisms. I'm not anti. I am about promoting you and helping each of us to be the very best and highest version of ourselves. So in our next conversation, we're going to hone in on these coping mechanisms, the two biggest one being being an enabler or codependent. Okay? We have suffered, it is suffering. Yeah, that's a good word. We have suffered under dissociative identity disorder for so long. And I know that that's a clinical term. And I don't necessarily mean it in the clinical sense in totality, although some of it applies, but more so in a more metaphysical, mystical, spiritual application, that we have suffered with this dissociative identity disorder for so long that it seems normal. And it's not. It seems normal, it seems healthy, and it's not. And so we're going to really get into dismantling all of the parts and pieces and the moving pieces and parts that keep this whole machine running, and dig down underneath the dirt and uncover your true self. It's going to be difficult. In some cases, it'll be painful. And all of it will be extremely challenging, but it is also necessary. And I know that if you listen and take it in and follow the principles I'm going to give you along the way, you're going to end the year by being a totally different person than you've been, because you're going to discover who you have always truly been underneath all the other stuff. Promise you, I give you my word. I give you my word. All right? So we're going to stop right here today. We're going to pick up tomorrow. We won't be on tomorrow for an hour and a half. It's been an hour and 40 minutes today. We'll do that on Sunday. But tomorrow, I'll try and keep it within the boundaries of about 30 minutes. And we'll do like 30 minutes a day until we get to the weekend. And then we'll expand a little more and have a broader, longer, more extensive conversation. Okay? My inbox is always open. You can always inbox me with any questions or concerns that you have. Feel free to shoot me an inbox. Those of you who have my number, shoot me a text, and I'm more than happy to address whatever your concerns or questions are. We're going to dig deep, and this is going to be a good healing process. Okay? I'm going to ask you to demonstrate your appreciation for this platform, these sessions, by giving. I'm asking those of you, all of you, there's about 15, 16 of you on. I'm going to ask you to demonstrate your value of what you are receiving and your appreciation for this platform by giving. Use the means that you see on your screen. Do it now while you're thinking about it, while it's in the forefront of your mind, so that you don't forget later on. Okay? Those of you who are partners, I'm encouraging you to give, to tithe, to sow, to support regularly. We've got on the list, there's about 35 partners. Now we don't ever have 35 people on the live, supporting the work. But I'm just going to ask those of you who initially became partners to please do your part to support what we're doing. Help me to help others. Okay? Help me to be able to help others. Take a moment and give your gift now. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for having a listening ear. Now listen, if you haven't signed up for the free text notification, do it now so you don't miss any of these conversations. It's going to be really good and intense. You want to be a part of it. Make sure you sign up. All right? Have an absolutely wonderful, outstanding day. And I'll see you again on tomorrow. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Bye, y'all.